Sometimes the truth doesn't announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it whispers in a stairwell at 11 p.m., and you almost miss it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into this story, I have to ask, where in the world are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And hey, how are you doing today? If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that button. You won't regret it. Trust me, stories like this one, they hit different when you're part of the community. Now, let's jump in. Julian Dawson wasn't supposed to hear it. He'd stayed late at Dawson Global Holdings again. 73rd floor, glass walls overlooking a city that never slept, working through acquisition reports that could have waited until morning. But waiting wasn't in his vocabulary. Neither was vulnerability. So when he finally grabbed his coat and headed toward the elevator, the last thing he expected was to be stopped in his tracks by a voice echoing up from the emergency stairwell. A girl's voice, quiet, shaking. "Please, don't send me back there. Not now. I'm begging you." Julian paused, one hand on the elevator button. The pleading tone wasn't just desperate. It was terrified. The kind of fear that made his chest tighten even though he didn't know her, didn't know the story, didn't know why every syllable sounded like she was bargaining for her life. He should have walked away. He had a driver waiting downstairs, a penthouse suite, a morning meeting with investors who could make or break his next quarter, but something in that voice hooked him. He moved toward the stairwell door and eased it open. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting cold shadows down the concrete steps, and there she was, crumpled against the wall on the landing below, her cleaning cart abandoned beside her, phone pressed to her forehead like it could stop the world from caving in. She didn't see him. She was too lost in the call, her voice breaking. "I can't go back. You don't understand. They're waiting for me. If I go back, I won't—" Her words dissolved into a choked sob, and she bit down hard on her knuckle to stifle the sound. Julian recognized her. Barely. She was part of the night cleaning crew, one of those invisible people who kept the building spotless while executives like him lived in their own bubble. He'd passed her a dozen times, maybe more, and never once asked her name. Now he couldn't look away. The call ended abruptly. She pulled the phone from her ear, stared at it like it had just sentenced her to death, then wiped her face with trembling hands. She stood, grabbed a rag from her cart, and started scrubbing the stair railing with mechanical precision, like if she just kept working, kept moving, she could outrun whatever had just been said on that call. But her hands were shaking too hard to hide it. Julian stepped into the stairwell. "Are you okay?" She flinched, nearly dropping the rag. Her head snapped up, and for a split second, their eyes met. Hers were red-rimmed, wide with panic and something deeper, shame. Like she'd been caught doing something wrong just by existing. "I'm fine," she said quickly, her accent thick, but her English clear. She turned back to the railing, scrubbing harder. "Sorry. Mr. Dawson, I'll be out of your way." "You're not in my way." He took a step closer, keeping his voice soft. "What's going on?" "Nothing. Just personal call. I'm fine." She wasn't fine. Her breath was coming too fast. Her shoulders hunched like she was bracing for a blow. And when she reached for her keys on the cart, her hand slipped. The keys clattered to the ground. She bent down to grab them, and that's when it happened. Her composure shattered. Silent tears streamed down her face, and she pressed both palms against the concrete floor, trying to hold herself together and failing. Julian crouched beside her. Hey, it's okay. You don't have to tell me anything, but if you need help—" "I don't," she whispered. But then, almost involuntarily, the words tumbled out. "I don't deserve help." That stopped him cold. Deserve? She looked up at him, and in her eyes he saw something he'd never seen directed at him before, someone who believed with every fiber of her being that she was beyond saving. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She hesitated. Lena Wolowitz." "Lena." He said it slowly, like testing the weight of it. "I don't know what's happening, but I know fear when I see it. And whatever that call was about, you're not fine." Her jaw clenched. For a moment, he thought she'd shut down completely. But then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said the words that would change everything. "My father's alive." Julian frowned. "Okay. Everyone here thinks he's dead. I told them he died 3 years ago, but he didn't." Her voice cracked. "He's in a detention center back home. Because of me." The air in the stairwell felt heavier, colder. "Because of a video I took," she continued, her words spilling faster now, like a dam breaking. "I didn't mean to post it. I didn't even know it uploaded. But it went viral. A protest. Government crackdown. My father was arrested. My little brother—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "He disappeared a week later. My mother got sick from the stress, and I got sent here for protection." Julian's stomach twisted. "Who sent you?" "A distant relative, my uncle. He sponsored my visa, told me I'd be safe here." She laughed bitterly. "But that call? That was him. The people back home, they want me. They think I still have the original footage. They want it destroyed. They want me destroyed. And my uncle, he's scared. They're pressuring him. He's giving in." Julian stared at her, his mind racing. "He's going to send you back. Tomorrow night." Her voice broke. "He already bought the ticket." The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. This wasn't about immigration paperwork. This wasn't about expired visas or legal status. This was an execution dressed up as deportation, and she knew it. "I tried everything," Lena whispered. "I begged him. I told him I'd disappear, change my name, go somewhere else. But he said it's too late. They know where I am. If he doesn't hand me over—" She trailed off, wiping her eyes. "I don't blame him. He has a family, too." Julian felt something crack open inside his chest, something he'd kept locked away for years beneath boardroom strategies and profit margins. He thought of his own life, his insulated world, the problems he considered real that suddenly felt obscenely trivial. And he thought about the gala last month, the international donors, the smiling officials who'd shaken his hand and thanked him for his company's support. What if those same people— No. He pushed the thought away, but it clawed back immediately, sharper. What if you've been funding the people hunting her? "Lena," he said carefully. "What country are you from?" She told him. And Julian Dawson, billionaire CEO, self-made man who'd built an empire on calculated risks and cold logic, felt the ground shift beneath him. Because he knew that country. He knew the officials. He'd donated to their economic development programs. He'd posed for photos with their representatives. He'd been helping them. And now one of their victims was sitting in his stairwell, crying into her hands, waiting to be sent back to die. "Lena," he said quietly, "go home. Pack a bag. Don't tell anyone. Meet me back here in 2 hours." She looked up, confused. "What?" "I'm not letting them take you." "You don't understand." "I understand enough." His voice was steel now. 2 hours. Can you do that?" She stared at him like he'd just spoken a language she didn't know. Hope and terror warred in her expression. Finally, she nodded. Julian stood, pulled out his phone, and made a call that would unravel everything, because he'd just decided to go to war with people who didn't lose. And he had no idea how deep the betrayal went. Julian sat in the back of his town car, but he didn't go home. "Take me to the archives building," he told his driver. Stephen Chen. Stephen had been with him for 6 years. Loyal, discreet, the kind of employee who knew when not to ask questions. Tonight, Stephen raised an eyebrow in the rearview mirror. "Sir, it's almost midnight." "I'm aware." Stephen pulled into traffic without another word. Julian's mind was racing. He scrolled through his phone, pulling up files he hadn't looked at in months. Donation records, sponsorship agreements, international partnerships. His company had expanded into 17 countries over the last decade. He'd shaken thousands of hands, signed hundreds of deals, and now he was searching for the one that would prove he'd been complicit in hunting an innocent girl. His phone buzzed. A text from his younger sister, Natalie. Nat. "Still at the office? You're going to burn out, Jules." He stared at the message. Natalie was the only person who still called him Jules, the only one who remembered what he'd been like before the money, before the empire, before he'd learned to bury every emotion under a layer of calculated control. She'd kill him if she knew what he was about to do. He typed back, "I'm fine. Sleep well." Another lie. He was getting good at those. The Archives building was one of Dawson Global's smaller properties, a converted warehouse where they stored physical records that hadn't been digitized yet. Old contracts, legal documents, paperwork from the early expansion years when Julian was still hungry and reckless, and willing to partner with anyone who had capital and connections. He used his key card to enter, flipping on lights as he moved through rows of file cabinets and storage boxes. The air smelled like dust and old paper. He found the international development section and started pulling folders. His hands moved mechanically, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the stairwell, to Lena's face, to the way she'd said, "I don't deserve help," like it was a fact carved into stone. How long had she been carrying that guilt? How many nights had she scrubbed floors in his building, invisible and terrified, believing she was responsible for her family's suffering? Julian knew guilt. He'd built his entire fortune on it. People didn't know the real story behind Dawson Global. They thought he was a genius, a visionary. The press loved to write about the poor kid from Brooklyn who'd bootstrapped his way to billions. What they didn't write about was why he'd been so desperate to succeed. His father had died when Julian was 19, a construction accident that could have been prevented if the company had followed basic safety protocols. But they cut corners, saved money. And Julian's father paid the price. The settlement was pocket change, enough to bury him and not much else. Julian had sworn he'd never be powerless like that again. He'd worked himself half to death, building something that couldn't be taken away, something that gave him control when the world felt like chaos. But control was an illusion. He knew that now, because here he was, one of the wealthiest men in the country, and he couldn't protect a 23-year-old cleaning girl from being dragged back to her death. Not yet, anyway. He found the folder he was looking for, International Partnership Initiative, Year 3. His stomach sank as he flipped through the pages. There it was, a $2.3 million donation to an economic development fund tied directly to Lena's home country. The agreement was signed by him, witnessed by his former CFO. And sitting on the advisory board of that fund? 3 government officials whose names he recognized from recent news reports about political crackdowns and human rights violations. He'd smiled for photos with these people. He'd toasted champagne with them at galas. And somewhere in that country, Lena's father was rotting in a cell because of a video his daughter had accidentally posted. Julian's hands clenched around the folder. "Damn it," he whispered. His phone buzzed again. Not Natalie this time. An unknown number. A single text. "She's a liar. Walk away before you regret it." Julian stared at the message, his pulse quickening. Who the hell? Another text came through immediately. Ask her about the money she stole. Ask her why she really ran. He deleted both messages and blocked the number. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and he hated himself for feeling it. Back at the office building, Lena sat on the floor of the women's restroom, her packed duffel bag beside her. She hadn't gone home. She didn't trust herself not to run. Her hands were still shaking. She pulled out her phone and looked at the last photo she had of her family, taken 4 years ago before everything fell apart. Her father's arm around her shoulders, her little brother grinning at the camera, her mother laughing at something off-frame. They looked happy. Whole. She'd destroyed that. The bathroom door creaked open, and Lena quickly shoved the phone into her pocket, wiping her eyes. An older woman from the night shift, Rosa Martinez, stepped inside, her kind face creasing with concern. "Lena, honey, you okay?" "I'm fine, Rosa. Just tired." Rosa didn't believe her. She never did. But she also never pushed. That's what Lena liked about her. Rosa understood that some pain was too big to talk about. "You eat today?" Rosa asked, pulling a wrapped sandwich from her bag. "I'm not hungry." "You're never hungry." Rosa set the sandwich on the sink counter. "Eat it anyway. You're too skinny." Lena managed a weak smile. "Thank you." Rosa studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "Whatever you're running from, mija, I hope you find a way to stop. You can't outrun everything forever." Lena's throat tightened. "What if I deserve to keep running?" "Nobody deserves that," Rosa said softly. She squeezed Lena's shoulder and left. Lena stared at the sandwich. Her stomach was a knot of anxiety, but she forced herself to take a bite. Rosa was wrong, though. Some people did deserve to keep running, and Lena was one of them. At 1:47 a.m., Julian returned to the building. He found Lena sitting on the floor by the stairwell, her bag clutched in her lap, looking smaller than he remembered. She stood when she saw him, her eyes searching his face. "Did you change your mind?" "No." He held up the folder. "But I need you to be honest with me about something." Her expression shuddered. "Okay." "Did you steal money from anyone back home?" Lena's face went pale. "Who told you that?" "Answer the question." She looked away, her jaw tight. "It wasn't stealing. It was survival." Julian's chest tightened. "Explain." "When my father was arrested, our bank accounts were frozen. Everything. My mother had no way to pay for food, medicine, anything, so I took money from the man who was supposed to be helping us, my uncle. The one who sent me here." She met Julian's eyes, defiant now. "He was hoarding it while my mother starved, so yes, I took it, and I'd do it again." Julian stared at her, not because he was angry, but because he finally understood why she thought she didn't deserve help. She'd been taught to see her survival as theft. "Lena," he said quietly, "that's not stealing, that's staying alive." Her eyes welled up, and she looked away quickly. "Tell that to my uncle." Julian made a decision in that moment, one that would cost him more than money. "Come on," he said. "We have work to do." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe." He paused. "And then we're going to find out who's really behind this." Because Julian Dawson had just realized something terrifying. If someone knew he'd picked Lena up tonight, if someone was already trying to warn him off, Then this went deeper than a scared uncle and a corrupt government. Someone inside his own circle was involved, and they were watching. Julian took Lena to the one place no one would think to look, his sister's art studio in Red Hook. Natalie had bought the space 3 years ago with money Julian had given her for her 30th birthday. She used it maybe twice a month, usually when inspiration struck at 3 a.m. and she needed to paint out her feelings. The rest of the time it sat empty, a converted loft with tall windows, drop cloths, and the lingering smell of turpentine and coffee. Julian unlocked the door and flipped on a single lamp. Soft yellow light spilled across canvases stacked against brick walls. Lena stepped inside cautiously, like she was entering a museum. "Where are we?" "Somewhere off the grid." Julian locked the door behind them. "No security cameras, no digital footprint. My sister pays cash for the rent. If anyone's tracking you, they won't find this place." "Your sister knows about me?" "No." Julian pulled out his phone. "And she won't. Not yet." Lena set her duffel bag down and wrapped her arms around herself. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her cleaning uniform rumpled, her hair falling loose from its ponytail. But there was something else in her expression now, a flicker of hope she was trying desperately to suppress. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. Julian looked up from his phone. "What?" "Helping me. You don't know me. You could lose everything if this goes wrong. So why?" He didn't have a good answer. Or maybe he did. But it was too raw to say out loud. "Because when I heard you begging for your life, I heard my father begging for his. Because I've spent 15 years building an empire to feel powerful, and tonight I realized I've been funding the very people who make others powerless. Because looking at you reminds me that money means nothing if you can't use it to stop suffering when it's right in front of you." Instead, he said, "Because it's the right thing to do." Lena laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "The right thing usually gets people killed." "Not this time." Before she could respond, Julian's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and froze. Another unknown number, another text. "Last warning. She's not who you think she is. Check her real name." Julian's jaw tightened. He was about to delete it when a second message came through, this time with an attachment, a photo. He opened it. His blood went cold. It was a surveillance photo, grainy, taken from a distance, of Lena standing outside a bank in her home country. The timestamp read 3 years ago. She was handing an envelope to a man in a suit. The man's face was partially obscured, but the caption below the photo was clear. "Lena Kozlov. Real identity. Delivered documents to foreign operatives before fleeing. Ask her what she was really running from." Julian looked up at Lena slowly. "Your last name is Wolowitz?" She nodded, confused. "Yes. Why? Not Kozlov?" Her face went white. "How do you—" "Someone just sent me a photo." Julian turned the phone toward her. "Is that you?" Lena stared at the image, her breathing shallow. For a moment, Julian thought she might bolt. But then her shoulders sagged and she sank onto a paint-splattered stool. "Yes," she whispered, "that's me. Explain. Now." "Kozlov is my real name. Wolowitz is my mother's maiden name. I changed it when I came here." She looked up at him, eyes wide with fear. "But that photo, it's not what it looks like." "Then what is it?" "That man worked for a journalist, an investigative reporter who was trying to expose the corruption in our government. After my video went viral, he contacted me. He said he could protect my family if I gave him the original footage, the unedited version. I didn't know what else to do, so I met him. I handed it over." Julian's mind raced. "What happened to him?" Lena's voice broke. "He disappeared 2 days later. They found his body in a river a week after that." The room felt colder. "Lena, if you gave him the footage, then why do they still think you have it?" "Because I didn't give him everything." She pulled her phone from her pocket with shaking hands, swiping through files until she found what she was looking for. She held it up to Julian. "I kept this, the last 30 seconds, the part that shows their faces clearly, the officials who gave the order to open fire on the protesters. I kept it because I was scared, because I thought if I had proof, I could bargain for my family's safety." Julian took the phone carefully. The video was paused on a frame showing 3 men in military uniforms standing on a rooftop, watching the chaos below. One of them was speaking into a radio. Another was smiling. Julian recognized 2 of them immediately. One had been at his gala, sitting at the head table, laughing at Julian's jokes. The other was the advisory board member listed in the donation folder. "Jesus Christ," Julian whispered. "Now you see why they want me dead," Lena said. "That video doesn't just prove they ordered the crackdown, it proves they enjoyed it. If that gets out, it destroys their international reputation. It ends their partnerships, their funding, everything." Julian's hands were shaking now. "How many people know you have this?" "My uncle, the journalist, but he's dead. And whoever's been hunting me." She paused. "And now you." Julian handed the phone back to her. His mind was spinning. This wasn't just about protecting Lena anymore. This was about exposing a systemic rot that went all the way to the top, a rot he'd unknowingly supported. But if he went public with this, if he used his resources to amplify Lena's story, he'd be declaring war on people who had governments in their pockets. "We need to make copies of that video," Julian said. "Multiple backups, cloud storage, physical drives, everything." "And then what?" Lena asked. "We release it? They'll kill us both." "Not if we do it right." Julian pulled out his laptop, already formulating a plan. "I have contacts, journalists I trust, human rights organizations. If we leak this strategically, with enough noise and visibility, they won't be able to silence us without making it worse for themselves." Lena stood abruptly. "You're talking about going public. Julian, do you understand what that means? They'll destroy you, your company, your reputation, everything you've built." "I know." "Then why would you—" "Because I've been complicit long enough." The words came out sharper than Julian intended. He took a breath, steadying himself. "I didn't know what I was funding, but now I do. And if I walk away, if I let them take you, if I let that video die with you—" He met her eyes. "Then I'm no better than they are." Lena stared at him. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. "You're insane." "Probably." Julian managed a grim smile. "But I'm also very rich, very stubborn, and very good at making things go viral. So we have a chance." For the first time since he'd met her, Lena laughed, really laughed. It was watery and desperate, but genuine. "Okay," she said. "Okay, let's do it." Julian opened his laptop and started typing, but before he could get far, his phone rang. Not a text this time, an actual call from his head of security. Julian answered. "Blake, it's 2 a.m. What?" "Sir, we have a problem." Blake O'Connell's voice was tense. "There's been a break-in at your penthouse and your sister's apartment. Whoever did it was looking for something, or someone." Julian's blood turned to ice. He looked at Lena, whose face had gone pale. "They're already moving," Julian said. "Who's moving? Sir, what's going on?" Julian ended the call. He grabbed Lena's arm gently but firmly. "We need to leave. Now." "Where do we go?" "Somewhere public, Somewhere they can't touch us without witnesses." His mind raced. "I know a place." But as they moved toward the door, Julian's phone buzzed one more time. A final message. No photo. Just 8 words that made his heart stop. "We know where your sister is." "Walk away." Julian stared at the screen. Lena saw his expression and grabbed his wrist. "Julian, what does it say?" He looked at her, then at the message, then back at her, and he made the choice that would seal both their fates. "We're not walking away," he said. "We're burning them down." Julian drove them to the one place that never closed and had cameras everywhere, the 24-hour diner on West 47th Street. The fluorescent lights were harsh, the coffee was terrible, and there were at least 30 witnesses scattered across the worn vinyl booths. Perfect. They slid into a corner booth. Lena kept her head down, her hoodie pulled up. Julian ordered coffee for both of them, though neither had any intention of drinking it. "Call your sister," Lena said urgently. "Warn her." Julian was already dialing. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same thing. "She turns her phone off when she sleeps," he muttered, fighting down panic. He texted instead. "Nat, call me the second you wake up. Don't go anywhere alone. This is serious." He stared at the message, willing her to wake up and see it. "They're using her to control you," Lena said quietly. "This is what they do. They find what you love and they threaten it until you comply. They picked the wrong leverage." Julian's voice was steel. "Threatening my sister doesn't make me back down. It makes me more dangerous." Lena studied him across the table. In the harsh diner lighting, she could see the exhaustion carved into his face, but also something else, a cold fury that reminded her this man hadn't built an empire by being soft. "Tell me about her," Lena said. "Your sister." Julian looked up, surprised. "Why?" "Because if I'm the reason she's in danger, I need to know who I'm putting at risk." He hesitated, then leaned back against the booth. "Natalie's 3 years younger than me. She's an artist, a real one, not the kind who does it for fun. She dropped out of Columbia to paint full-time, which almost gave our mother a heart attack." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "She's stubborn, reckless. She once got arrested at a climate protest because she chained herself to a senator's car. She sounds brave." "She's an idiot," Julian said, but there was affection in his voice. "She thinks the world can be fixed with passion and paint. I keep telling her that real change requires strategy, resources, power." He paused. "But maybe she's been right all along. Maybe I'm the idiot." Lena reached across the table, hesitating before placing her hand over his. "You're not an idiot. You're trying to help me. That's more than anyone else has done." Their eyes met, and for a moment the diner around them seemed to fade. Julian became acutely aware of how small her hand was, how warm against his skin, how despite everything she'd been through, she was still trying to comfort him. He pulled his hand back, clearing his throat. "We should focus on the plan." Lena withdrew, a flush creeping up her neck. "Right, the plan." Before Julian could open his laptop, a waitress appeared. Middle-aged, kind eyes, name tag reading Diane. "You two need anything else? You've been nursing those coffees for 20 minutes. "We're fine, thank you," Julian said. Diane didn't leave. She looked at Lena with the kind of knowing concern that made Julian tense. "Honey, you okay? You look like you've been crying." "I'm fine," Lena said quickly, "because if someone's bothering you, my nephew's a cop. I can make a call." "We're fine," Julian interrupted, his tone sharper than intended. "Thank you." Diane gave him a long look, then nodded and walked away. But Julian noticed her pull out her phone at the counter. "We need to move," he said. "Now. She's just being nice. Or she's calling someone." Julian threw cash on the table. "We can't take chances." They left through the back exit, emerging into an alley that smelled like garbage and rain. Julian's car was parked 2 blocks away. They moved quickly, Lena struggling to keep up with his long strides. "Julian, slow down!" He spun around, and she nearly collided with him. They were standing close, too close, in the narrow alley. Julian's hands came up instinctively to steady her, gripping her shoulders. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice softer now. "I'm not used to this, protecting someone, caring whether—" He stopped himself. "Whether what?" Lena asked, her breath visible in the cold air. "Whether they make it out alive." The admission hung between them. "I've spent my entire adult life protecting assets, growing companies, managing risks. But you're not an asset, Lena. You're a person. And if something happens to you because I wasn't careful enough, nothing's going to happen to me," she said firmly, "because you're not going to let it. Right?" Julian looked at her, really looked at her. This girl who'd lost everything, who carried guilt that wasn't hers to carry, who still somehow had the strength to reassure him when she was the one being hunted. "Right," he said. They stood there for another heartbeat, neither moving. Then Julian's phone shattered the moment. He answered without checking the ID. "Hello? Julian Dawson?" A man's voice, smooth, accented, familiar. Julian's stomach dropped. "Who is this? We met at your gala last month. I very much enjoyed the champagne." One of the officials from the video. Julian's hand tightened around the phone. "What do you want?" "To offer you a way out of this unfortunate situation. You've taken something that doesn't belong to you. Return the girl, delete whatever she's shown you, and we'll forget this happened. Your sister will be safe. Your company will be safe. You'll be safe." "And Lena? The girl's fate is not your concern. That's where you're wrong." Julian's voice was ice. "She's exactly my concern. So here's my counteroffer. Leave her alone, leave my sister alone, and I won't release the video that shows you ordering the murder of innocent protesters." Silence on the other end. Then a low chuckle. "You're bluffing. If you had evidence worth anything, you'd have used it already. Try me." "Mr. Dawson, you're a businessman, a good one, so let me speak to you in terms you understand. You cannot win this fight. We have resources you cannot imagine, connections that span continents. We've made problems far larger than you disappear without a trace." "Then you should know," Julian said, "that I didn't build a multi-billion-dollar company by backing down from threats. So come after me. Come after my sister. But understand this, the second you do, that video goes to every major news outlet in the world, and I'll spend every penny I have making sure it never stops being news." Another pause. "You're making a mistake. I've made a lot of those. This isn't one of them." Julian ended the call and immediately started uploading the video to 3 separate cloud servers. His hands were shaking, but his resolve was solid. Lena watched him, her eyes wide. "You just declared war." "Good." Julian pocketed his phone. "Let them come." But as they reached his car, Julian saw it. A black SUV parked across the street. Windows tinted. Engine running. Someone was watching them. "Get in," Julian said quietly. "Don't look at them. Just get in." They slid into his car. Julian started the engine, his mind racing through options. "Julian?" Lena whispered, her voice shaking. "There's another one, behind us." He checked the rearview mirror. She was right. They were boxed in. "Hold on," Julian said. He threw the car into reverse, tires squealing as he backed onto the sidewalk, narrowly missing a fire hydrant. The SUV behind them lurched forward, but Julian was faster. He swung the car around and gunned it down the alley, emerging onto a main street just as the first SUV gave chase. "Oh, my God!" Lena breathed, gripping the door handle. "What are you doing?" "Surviving." Julian ran a red light, horns blaring around them. The SUVs were still coming. His phone rang again. This time it was Blake, his head of security. "Sir, where are you? I've got reports of—" "Blake, I need you to get to my sister, right now. Don't ask questions. Get her somewhere safe and don't tell me where. Do you understand?" "Sir." "Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." Julian ended the call and took a sharp turn, the SUVs barely keeping pace. He had no plan, no endgame, just the desperate need to keep Lena alive long enough to figure one out. "Where are we going?" Lena asked. Julian glanced at her, at this girl who'd crashed into his life and turned it upside down in the span of 3 hours. "Somewhere they'll never look," he said, and drove straight toward the one place that terrified him more than any boardroom or battlefield, his childhood home in Brooklyn, where his mother still lived, and where all his secrets were buried. Julian's childhood home was a narrow brownstone in Bed-Stuy that time had forgotten. Cracked steps, faded paint, a wrought-iron gate that squeaked like it was crying. He parked 3 blocks away and walked Lena through side streets, constantly checking over his shoulder. The SUVs had lost them somewhere near the bridge, but Julian knew better than to feel safe. "Your mother knows we're coming?" Lena asked. "No." Julian stopped at the gate, his hand hovering over the latch. "She doesn't know about any of this. Julian, she won't turn us away." He said it like he was trying to convince himself. It was 4:17 a.m. when he knocked. The porch light flickered on, and a moment later the door opened a crack. Margaret Dawson stood there in a faded robe, her gray hair in curlers, her eyes sharp despite the hour. She looked at her son, then at the girl beside him, and her expression shifted from confusion to something harder. "Julian." Her voice was flat. "What did you do?" "Mom, I need your help." "That's not an answer." She opened the door wider, eyeing Lena. "Who's this?" "Someone who needs protection." Margaret's jaw tightened. "From who?" "People I used to do business with." His mother stared at him for a long moment, then stepped aside. "Get in, both of you." The house smelled like old books and lavender. Nothing had changed. Same floral couch, same family photos on the mantel, same crucifix above the doorway. Julian felt like he was 17 again, coming home after curfew with excuses his mother never believed. Margaret locked the door behind them and turned to face Julian, arms crossed. "Start talking," Julian explained. "Not everything. He left out the video, the officials, the specific threats. But he told her enough. Lena was being hunted. He'd gotten involved. Now they were both in danger. His mother listened without interrupting. When he finished, she turned to Lena. "What's your real story, girl?" Lena blinked. What?" "My son's a lot of things, but stupid isn't one of them. He doesn't risk his empire for strangers. So what aren't you telling me?" Julian started to protest, but Lena held up a hand. She looked at Margaret with something like respect. "My father's in prison because of a video I took. My brother's missing. My mother's dying, and the people responsible want me dead because I have proof of what they did." Lena's voice didn't waver. "Your son's helping me because he's a better man than he thinks he is. That's the whole story." Margaret studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Okay." "Okay," Julian repeated. "She's telling the truth. I can always tell." Margaret moved toward the kitchen. You too hungry? You look half dead. Mom, we don't have time. You've got time to eat. She disappeared through the doorway. Sit. Both of you. Julian and Lena exchanged glances, then sat at the worn kitchen table. Lena looked around, taking in the family photos on the refrigerator, the chipped mugs hanging from hooks, the normalcy of it all. Your mother's intense, she whispered. You have no idea. Margaret returned with eggs, bread, and coffee that actually smelled good. As she cooked, she talked without turning around. Julian was 12 when his father died. Did he tell you that? Lena glanced at Julian, who'd gone very still. No. Construction accident. Company cut corners on safety equipment. Frank fell 3 stories. Margaret cracked eggs into a pan with more force than necessary. Insurance company fought us for 2 years. Lawyers bled us dry. We lost the house, almost lost everything. Mom, let me finish. She flipped the eggs. Julian watched it all happen, watched me work 3 jobs, watched the system chew us up. And when he was 19, he made me a promise. You remember, Jules? Julian's throat was tight. I remember. He said he'd make enough money that we'd never be powerless again. That no one could ever hurt us like that again. She plated the food and set it in front of them. And he did it. Built his empire from nothing. But you know what the cost was? Lena shook her head. He stopped believing anyone was worth saving unless they could help themselves first. Margaret finally looked at her son. Until tonight, apparently. Julian stared at his plate. That's not fair. Isn't it? His mother sat down across from him. When's the last time you helped someone who couldn't give you something in return? When's the last time you got involved in someone else's mess just because it was the right thing to do? I donate millions to charity. Writing checks isn't the same as caring, baby. Margaret's voice softened. I'm not criticizing. I'm saying this girl here, she's changing you. And that scares you more than whatever's chasing you both. The room fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Lena picked at her eggs, not eating. Mrs. Dawson, I don't want to change anything. I just want to survive. Too late for that, honey. Margaret smiled sadly. You're already under his skin. I can see it. Julian stood abruptly. I need to make some calls. He left the kitchen, pulling out his phone, but his hands were shaking too much to dial, because his mother was right. Somewhere between the stairwell and this kitchen table, Lena had stopped being a problem to solve and become someone he couldn't imagine losing. And that terrified him. His phone buzzed. A text from Blake. Your sister is secure. Location undisclosed per your instructions. But Julian, whoever these people are, they have access to our security systems. They knew where to look. Someone on the inside is helping them. Julian's blood went cold. Someone inside his company was feeding information to Lena's hunters. He walked back into the kitchen, his face grim. We have a leak. Someone in my organization is working with them. Lena set down her fork. Who? I don't know yet. But they have access to my security feeds, my schedules, everything. He looked at his mother. Which means they might know we're here. Margaret stood calmly and walked to a cabinet. She pulled out something Julian hadn't seen in years, his father's old handgun. Mom, your father taught me how to use this after the first break-in. She checked the chamber with practiced ease. Nobody's touching either of you while I'm breathing. Julian stared at his mother, this woman who'd worked herself to the bone, who'd raised him on faith and stubbornness, who was now loading a gun to protect a girl she'd met 20 minutes ago. Thank you, Lena said quietly. Margaret nodded. Don't thank me yet, honey, Because if what Julian says is true, you've got maybe a few hours before they track you here, so you'd better figure out your next move fast." Julian was about to respond when his phone rang again. "Unknown number," he answered on speaker. "What?" "Mr. Dawson." A woman's voice this time, crisp, American. "My name is Claire Buchanan. I'm an investigative journalist with the Washington Post. I received an encrypted file 20 minutes ago containing a video of government officials ordering violence against protesters. The metadata traces back to you. Is this real?" Julian's heart stopped. He hadn't sent the video to anyone yet. "Who sent you that file? I was hoping you could tell me, because if it's authentic, this is the biggest human rights story of the year. And if you're involved, Mr. Dawson, I need to talk to you. Now." Julian looked at Lena. Her face had gone white. "I didn't send it," Julian said slowly, "which means someone else has access to the footage." The implication hit him like a freight train. Someone had hacked his cloud servers. Someone had taken the video. And if they could do that— "They know everything," Lena whispered. "Every plan, every backup, everything we've done." Julian's mind raced. The leak inside his company, the hacked servers, the journalist getting the video. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. "Ms. Buchanan," Julian said carefully, "where are you right now?" "My office in D.C. Why?" "Get somewhere public. Somewhere with cameras. Don't trust anyone, and don't publish that video yet." "Mr. Dawson, if you publish it now, you'll be dead by morning. They're monitoring everything. They know you have it." He paused. "But if you wait 12 hours, I can give you something better than just the video. I can give you the whole story. Names, connections, money trails, everything." Silence. Then, 12 hours, but if you're playing me— "I'm not. I'll contact you soon." He ended the call and looked at his mother and Lena. "We can't stay here," he said. "We need to disappear. Completely." "How?" Lena asked. Julian pulled up a contact on his phone, someone he'd sworn he'd never call again. His ex-fiancée, Charlotte Draper, the woman he'd left at the altar 3 years ago, the woman who now ran the most secure private intelligence firm in the country. "I know someone who can hide us," Julian said, "but asking her for help is going to cost me everything I have left." Lena stood. "Then let's go." Margaret grabbed Julian's arm as they headed for the door. "Jules, be careful, not just with your life, with your heart." He kissed his mother's forehead. "I will." But as they stepped into the pre-dawn darkness, Julian realized it was already too late for that. Charlotte Draper's office was a fortress disguised as a penthouse in Tribeca. Bulletproof glass, biometric locks, security so tight even Julian felt uneasy walking through the lobby. He hadn't seen her in 3 years, hadn't spoken to her in 2, and now he was about to ask her to save his life. "She's going to hate me," Lena whispered as they rode the private elevator up. "She already hates me," Julian said. "You'll be fine." The elevator doors opened directly into Charlotte's office, all white marble and chrome, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And there she was, standing by those windows, her back to them. Charlotte Draper, 34, auburn hair cut in a sharp bob, tailored black suit. She didn't turn around when they entered. "Julian Dawson," she said, her voice cool as winter. "I'd heard you were having a bad week. I didn't realize you'd come crawling to me about it." "Charlotte, 3 years." She finally turned, and Julian felt the familiar punch of seeing her face. Beautiful, sharp, cold. 3 years since you left me standing in a church full of 200 people. And now you show up at 5 in the morning with a strange girl and what I'm guessing is a death wish. I need your help. No. Charlotte walked to her desk, sitting with deliberate grace. You need a miracle, and I stopped believing in those when you walked out on me. Lena stepped forward. Ms. Draper, my name is Lena Kozlov. I know. Charlotte's eyes were sharp. Born in a country currently in political turmoil, father imprisoned, brother missing. You're being hunted by officials who have connections that span 3 continents, and my brilliant ex-fiancé decided to play hero without understanding what he was getting into. She looked at Julian. Did I miss anything? How do you... Because 15 minutes after you called, I had my team pull everything on both of you. It's what I do, Julian. Intelligence, protection, risk assessment. She leaned back. And you two? You're the highest risk clients I've ever seen. Julian moved closer to the desk. Charlotte, please. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve... You don't. Her voice cracked slightly, and she hated herself for it. You don't deserve anything from me, but I'm going to help you anyway. You know why? Why? Because despite everything, I still can't watch you die. She stood, her professional mask sliding back into place. But it's going to cost you, and I don't mean money. What do you want? Charlotte walked around the desk until she was inches from him. The truth. Why did you leave me? Julian's throat tightened. Charlotte, this isn't the time. Then there will never be a time. Answer the question, or the door's that way. Lena started to speak, but Julian held up a hand. He looked at Charlotte, really looked at her, and saw the wound he'd left that never healed. I left because I was terrified, he said quietly. Because you wanted something real, and I'd spent my whole life building walls so thick I didn't know how to let anyone in. You deserved better than a man who could only love his work. So I ran. Charlotte's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. You're still running. I know. She looked at Lena, then back at Julian. Something shifted in her expression. Except now you're running towards something instead of away from it. That's new. Charlotte. Fine, I'll help. She moved back to her desk, all business now. But we do this my way. You follow my rules. No arguments, no heroics. Understood? Understood. Charlotte pressed a button on her desk. Marcus, prep the safe house in Connecticut. 2 guests, maximum security protocol. A voice crackled through the speaker. Yes, ma'am. She looked at Julian. You've got maybe 6 hours before they triangulate your position. My team will move you separately. Different routes, different vehicles. You won't see each other until you're both secure. Wait, Lena said. We're being separated? It's safer this way. If they grab one of you, the other stays hidden. No. Lena looked at Julian, panic flashing in her eyes. We stay together. That's not how this works. I don't care how it works. Lena's voice was stronger now. Every time we've split up, things got worse. I'm not losing him. Charlotte raised an eyebrow, looking between them. Losing him? You've known each other for what, 12 hours? 18, Lena said, and yes. I'm not losing him. Charlotte studied Lena for a long moment, then turned to Julian. She's got more spine than I gave her credit for. Charlotte, we need to do what's safest. What's safest is keeping you both where I can see you. She sighed. Fine, you stay together, but if this goes sideways, it's on you. Julian nodded. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Charlotte pulled up a screen, showing surveillance footage from various locations around the city. Because I need to show you something. These are feeds from the last 3 hours. Watch. The screen split into 4 sections. Each showed a different person being detained, pulled into black SUVs, surrounded by men in suits. Julian didn't recognize any of them until Charlotte zoomed in on the 4th frame. His blood turned to ice. It was Blake, his head of security. The man he'd trusted with his sister's life. "They grabbed him 20 minutes ago," Charlotte said, "along with your CFO, your personal assistant, and your head of legal. Everyone in your inner circle who might know where you are." "Oh, God," Julian whispered. "Natalie." "Your sister's fine. Blake got her to safety before they took him. But Julian—" Charlotte's voice was grim. "They're going to make him talk, and when he does, they'll know everything." Lena grabbed Julian's arm. "We need to run. Now. Running won't help." Charlotte pulled up another screen, this one showing bank accounts, wire transfers, digital trails. "They've frozen your assets. Every account, every investment, every property. As of 20 minutes ago, you're worth exactly $0. They're choking you out financially so you can't fight back." Julian stared at the screen, watching his empire crumble in real time. "How is this legal?" "It's not, but when you're fighting governments with unlimited resources, legality doesn't matter." Charlotte's expression softened. "I'm sorry, Julian, but you're officially broke, hunted, and running out of time." The room fell silent except for the hum of the computers. Julian looked at Lena. She was staring at the floor, her hands trembling. "This is my fault," she whispered. "You lost everything because of me?" "No." Julian moved to her, taking her hands. "I lost money, buildings, numbers on a screen. That's not everything." "Julian, you know what I realized tonight?" He tilted her chin up gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I spent 15 years building an empire because I was afraid of being powerless. But the most powerful thing I've ever done is standing here with you, refusing to let them win." Tears spilled down Lena's cheeks. "You're insane." "Probably." He smiled, a real smile this time. "But I'm not walking away." Charlotte cleared her throat. "As touching as this is, we have a problem. The journalist, Claire Buchanan, she just published the video." Julian spun around. "What? I told her to wait." "She didn't listen. It went live 10 minutes ago. Every major news outlet is picking it up." Charlotte pulled up the headlines. Leaked video shows government officials ordering violence against protesters. Billionaire Julian Dawson implicated in international scandal. Who is Lena Kozlov? The girl at the center of the storm. Julian's hands clenched into fists. "They'll kill her, the journalist. They already tried." Charlotte pulled up another feed. Police cars surrounding a building in D.C., paramedics loading someone into an ambulance. "She was shot 30 minutes ago outside her apartment. She's alive, but critical." Lena made a sound like she'd been punched. "This is what happens," Charlotte said quietly. "This is what you're up against. They don't negotiate. They don't compromise. They eliminate threats." Julian's phone buzzed. Another unknown number. He answered without thinking. "Mr. Dawson." The same official from before, but this time his voice was different, colder, final. "You've made your choice. So have we. Say goodbye to everyone you love." The line went dead. 3 seconds later, every screen in Charlotte's office went black. Then they flickered back on, but instead of surveillance feeds, there was a single image. A photo of Natalie, tied to a chair, blood on her face, eyes wide with terror, and a timestamp, "Live." Lena screamed. Julian's world shattered. Charlotte was already on her phone, barking orders, but Julian couldn't hear anything over the roaring in his ears. They had his sister, they had Natalie, and the message was clear. Surrender, Lena, or watch Natalie die. Julian looked at Lena. She was backing away, shaking her head. No, she said. Julian, no, you're not choosing. You're going to save her. You're going to give them what they want. Lena, she's your sister. Tears streamed down Lena's face. I'm nobody, I'm just— You're not nobody. Julian moved toward her, but she kept backing away. Lena, stop. I'll turn myself in. I'll go to them. Just please, save Natalie. I'm not trading you. You have to. Lena was sobbing now. She's innocent. She didn't do anything. This is all because of me. Let me fix it. Let me do one good thing before I— Before you what? Die? Julian grabbed her shoulders. You think I can live with that? You think I can save my sister by feeding you to monsters? You don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Charlotte's voice cut through the chaos. Both of you shut up, now. They turned to her. She was staring at her computer, her face pale. What? Julian demanded. The photo. Charlotte's fingers flew across the keyboard. It's fake. The metadata's been manipulated. It's not live. It's not even recent. What are you talking about? This photo was taken 4 hours ago and doctored to look current. Charlotte pulled up the original image. See? Different lighting, different timestamp. They're trying to make you panic, to force a bad decision. But Natalie is probably still safe wherever Blake hid her. This is psychological warfare. Charlotte looked at Julian. They're trying to break you. Don't let them. Julian's hands were shaking. Relief and rage warred inside him. So, what do we do? Lena asked. Charlotte closed her laptop. We disappear, completely, and we prepare for war. The safe house in Connecticut was a converted barn surrounded by 60 acres of woods. No neighbors, no cell towers, no way to track them digitally. Charlotte's team had swept them out of the city in separate vehicles, Julian in a catering van, Lena in a laundry truck, then reunited them 2 hours later in a place that smelled like pine and safety. But safety was an illusion, and they all knew it. Julian stood by the window, watching dawn break over the trees. He hadn't slept, couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that doctored photo of Natalie, saw Claire Buchanan being loaded into an ambulance, saw everything he'd built turning to ash. You should rest, Lena said from the doorway. He didn't turn around. Can't. She moved closer, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. They'd been given clean clothes, jeans, sweaters, basics that Charlotte's team kept stocked. Lena looked younger in the oversized hoodie, more vulnerable. I keep thinking about what you said, she whispered, about losing money and buildings, about how that's not everything. It's not, but it was your everything, before this, before me. She paused. What happens when this is over and you realize what you gave up? Julian finally turned to face her. What makes you think I'll regret it? Because everyone does eventually. Everyone who tries to help me ends up— Her voice broke. The journalist tried to help. Now she's in critical condition. Your head of security tried to help. Now he's captured. You tried to help, and you lost your entire fortune. I didn't lose anything that mattered. Julian, do you know why I really left Charlotte? The words came out before he could stop them. It wasn't just fear, it was guilt. I looked at her on our wedding day, and I realized I was marrying her for the wrong reasons, because she fit the image of what a successful man should have, because she looked good in photos, because marrying her felt like checking off another box on my list of achievements. Lena was quiet, listening. I didn't love her the way she deserved to be loved, Julian continued, so I walked away, and I told myself I'd done the right thing, that I was protecting her from a man who couldn't give her what she needed. He took a step closer to Lena. But the truth is, I was protecting myself from vulnerability, from real connection, from anything that might make me feel something I couldn't control. Why are you telling me this? Because for the first time in my life, I'm not protecting myself. His voice was raw. I'm standing here, broke and hunted, and all I can think about is keeping you alive. Not because you're a problem to solve or a box to check, but because when I look at you, I feel something I've never felt before. What? Lena whispered. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The space between them felt electric. Lena's breath hitched, and for a moment Julian thought she might pull away. Instead, she closed the distance, her hand finding his. I'm terrified, she admitted, of what they'll do to you, of what I've done to your life, of what happens if... Julian cupped her face gently. Then be terrified with me. But don't push me away. Their foreheads touched, and in that moment the world outside, the threats, the danger, the chaos, faded to background noise. I don't know how to let someone care about me, Lena breathed. Neither do I. Julian smiled slightly. We'll figure it out together. The moment shattered when Charlotte walked in, laptop under her arm. She stopped, taking in the scene, and raised an eyebrow. Sorry to interrupt, she said dryly, but we have a situation. Julian stepped back, professional mode snapping into place. What now? Charlotte set her laptop on the table, pulling up a video call. A woman's face appeared on screen. Late 50s, sharp eyes, gray hair pulled back severely. Mr. Dawson, the woman said, my name is Director Sarah Martinez, FBI, International Crimes Division. We need to talk. Julian's stomach dropped. About? About the video currently breaking the internet, about the officials implicated, about the girl you're harboring. Director Martinez's expression was unreadable, and about the opportunity you just created for us. Opportunity? We've been building a case against these officials for 3 years. Corruption, money laundering, human rights violations. But we've never had proof this damning. The video Miss Kozlov provided? It's the key to everything. She paused. But only if she's willing to testify. Lena stepped into the camera's view. Testify where? International court, with full protection, witness security, new identity if necessary. Director Martinez leaned forward. But you need to understand, this won't be quick. The trial could take months, maybe years. And the people you're testifying against won't stop trying to silence you. So she trades one prison for another, Julian said coldly. She trades running for justice. Martinez's voice was firm. Mr. Dawson, I understand you've gotten personally involved in this situation, but this is bigger than both of you now. That video has sparked international outrage, protests in 6 countries, political pressure that hasn't existed before. If Miss Kozlov testifies, we can dismantle an entire network of corruption. Lena looked at Julian. What do you think? I think it's your choice, he said quietly. Not mine, not the FBI's. Yours. Charlotte spoke up. Director Martinez, what about Julian? He's been targeted, his assets frozen, his sister threatened. What protection does he get? We're working on unfreezing his accounts, and we can provide security for his family. But I'll be honest, Mr. Dawson made himself a target the moment he got involved. There's no easy way out of that. So I testify, Lena said slowly, and Julian stays hunted? His life stays destroyed? His life isn't destroyed, Martinez corrected. It's complicated, but if you both cooperate, if you let us handle this the right way, There's a path forward, a real one, not just survival, but actual justice. Julian watched Lena's face as she processed this. He could see the war happening behind her eyes, the guilt, the hope, the fear. "I need time to think," Lena said finally. "You have 6 hours," Martinez replied. "After that, I can't guarantee your location stays secure. Too many people are looking for you." She paused. "Use the time wisely." The screen went black. The room fell silent. Charlotte closed her laptop. "She's right, you know. Testifying is your best shot at ending this." "It's also the most dangerous thing she could do," Julian countered. "Everything's dangerous now." Charlotte looked at Lena. "But at least this way, the danger has a purpose. You'd be fighting back, not just running." Lena wrapped her arms around herself. "I need air." She walked outside onto the porch. Julian started to follow, but Charlotte grabbed his arm. "Let her think," Charlotte said. "She needs space. She needs support. She needs to make this decision on her own, without you trying to protect her from every choice." Charlotte's expression softened. "You're doing it again, Julian. Trying to control the outcome, trying to shield someone from pain because you can't handle watching them hurt. That's not. It is. And if you really care about her, you'll let her choose her own path, even if it's not the one you'd pick for her." Julian stared at the door Lena had disappeared through. Charlotte was right. He knew it, but every instinct screamed at him to go after her, to convince her to choose safety over justice. Instead, he sat down at the table and waited. An hour later, Lena came back inside. Her eyes were red, but her expression was clear. "I'm going to testify," she said. "Not because the FBI asked, not because it's strategic, but because my father's still in that prison. My brother's still missing. And if I don't fight for them, who will?" Julian stood. "Then I'm testifying with you." "Julian, you think I don't have evidence? I have donation records, photos, emails, proof of financial connections between these officials and dozens of American companies." His voice was steel. "If you're standing up in court, you're not standing alone." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "You've already lost so much." "And I'll lose more if I let you face this without me." He took her hands. "We started this together. We finish it together." Charlotte watched them both, then picked up her phone. "I'll call Martinez. Tell her you're in." As she walked away to make the call, Julian pulled Lena close. She buried her face in his chest, and he felt her shoulders shake. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too." He kissed the top of her head. "But we're going to win this, I promise." And for the first time since this nightmare began, Julian believed it. They were done running. Now they were fighting back. The courtroom in The Hague was nothing like the movies. No dramatic music, no gasping crowds, just cold fluorescent lights, rows of wooden benches, and a silence so heavy it felt like drowning. 6 months had passed since that morning in Connecticut. 6 months of depositions, investigations, protected safe houses, living under assumed names while the world tore itself apart over the video that wouldn't stop spreading. The officials had tried everything, discrediting Lena, claiming the footage was doctored, flooding the media with counter-narratives. But Julian's evidence had been the hammer that shattered their defense. Financial records that traced money from these officials directly into shell companies, emails discussing damage control and eliminating loose ends, testimony from insiders who'd finally found the courage to speak. And now, here they were, the final day of trial. Julian sat behind the witness section, watching Lena take the stand one last time. She wore a simple gray suit that Charlotte had picked out, Her hair was longer now, pulled back in a neat bun. She looked stronger than she had 6 months ago. Less like a girl running from shadows, and more like a woman who'd decided to stand in the light. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Dr. Elise Laurent, approached the stand. "Miss Kozlov, I have one final question for the court. You've testified that your father, Anton Kozlov, is still imprisoned in your home country, that your brother, Dmitri, has been missing for over 3 years, that your mother passed away 4 months ago without ever seeing you again." Lena's voice was steady. "That's correct. Given everything you've lost, everything these officials have taken from you, do you regret coming forward with this evidence?" Lena looked directly at the 3 officials sitting at the defense table. They stared back with cold eyes, confident even now that their connections would save them. "No," Lena said clearly. "I don't regret it, because silence is what they count on. They count on people being too scared, too tired, too broken to fight back. My father taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when you're terrified." Her voice strengthened. "So no, I don't regret speaking. I regret that it took me so long to find my voice." The courtroom was silent. Dr. Laurent nodded. "No further questions, Your Honor." The defense attorney, a slick man in an expensive suit, stood. "Miss Kozlov, isn't it true that you've been financially supported by Julian Dawson throughout this entire process? That you've been living in his properties, protected by his resources?" "Objection," Dr. Laurent said. "Relevance? I'm establishing bias, Your Honor. This witness has every incentive to maintain her story, to keep her benefactor's support." The judge nodded. "Overruled. The witness may answer." Lena looked at Julian. Their eyes met across the courtroom, and something passed between them, an understanding that went deeper than words. "Julian Dawson has supported me," Lena said carefully, "but not financially. His assets were frozen 6 months ago and only partially restored last week. The protection I received came from the FBI, not from him personally." She paused. "What Mr. Dawson gave me was something your clients tried to take away, the belief that my life had value, that truth mattered, that one person standing up could make a difference." "How convenient," the attorney sneered. "A pretty story for—" "Are you suggesting," Lena interrupted, her voice sharp, "that I fabricated years of evidence, convinced multiple witnesses to perjure themselves, and doctored video footage that your own experts couldn't prove was fake, all for a pretty story?" The attorney's jaw tightened. "I'm suggesting you have motivation to lie." "You're right, I do have motivation." Lena leaned forward. "My motivation is that my father is dying in a cell. My brother's body was found 3 months ago in an unmarked grave. My mother died believing I'd abandoned her. So yes, I'm motivated. Motivated to make sure no other family suffers what mine did. Motivated to prove that powerful men can't just erase people who inconvenience them." The attorney had no response. "No further questions," he muttered, sitting down. The judge looked at both counsels. "Closing arguments?" What followed were 2 hours of legal summation. Dr. Laurent methodically laying out the evidence, the defense scrambling to create reasonable doubt. But Julian could see it in the judges' faces. They'd already made their decision. When the court adjourned for deliberation, Julian finally reached Lena outside the courtroom. She collapsed into his arms the moment they were alone in the hallway. "It's almost over," he whispered into her hair. "What if they walk free?" Her voice was muffled against his chest. "What if we did all this for nothing?" "We didn't do it for nothing. We did it because it was right." He pulled back to look at her. "And no matter what happens in there, you've already won. The world knows the truth now. That matters. Charlotte appeared around the corner, her phone pressed to her ear. She looked at them and smiled, genuinely smiled, for the first time in months. "That was Director Martinez," she said, ending the call. "They found him. Lena, they found your father." Lena's knees buckled. Julian caught her. "What?" "The international pressure worked. Your government released 72 political prisoners this morning as a gesture of good faith." Anton Kozlov was one of them. Charlotte's eyes were bright. "He's being flown to a medical facility in Germany. He's weak, but he's alive." Lena couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. 3 years. 3 years of believing she'd destroyed him. 3 years of guilt and grief and— "He's alive?" she whispered. "He's alive, and he's asking for you." Lena turned to Julian, tears streaming down her face. "My father—" "I heard." Julian was crying too, he realized. "Lena, he's alive." She kissed him then, desperately, joyfully, right there in the courthouse hallway. And Julian kissed her back, tasting salt and relief and hope. When they broke apart, Charlotte was discreetly looking away, smiling. "There's more," she said. "The court's verdict came back early. They're calling everyone back in." The three of them hurried back into the courtroom. The officials sat rigid at their table, their lawyers whispering urgently. The lead judge entered. Everyone stood. "In the matter of the International Criminal Court versus Volkov, Tarasenko, and Markov, this court finds the defendants guilty on all charges: crimes against humanity, corruption, conspiracy to commit murder." The judge's voice was iron. "The defendants are sentenced to 25 years' imprisonment each, with no possibility of parole." The courtroom erupted. The officials sat frozen in shock. One of them, Volkov, the man who'd called Julian that night, turned to stare at Lena. Not with anger, with disbelief, as if he couldn't comprehend how a cleaning girl had brought down his empire. Lena stared back, and this time she didn't look away. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed, camera flashes, shouted questions. Dr. Laurent handled the press conference while Julian, Lena, and Charlotte slipped out a side entrance. A car was waiting, not one of Charlotte's armored vehicles, but a simple sedan. "Where to?" Charlotte asked. Julian looked at Lena. "Germany?" "Germany," Lena agreed. As they drove away from The Hague, Lena's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She opened it, and her breath caught. It was a photo, grainy, taken from a hospital bed. A man, gaunt, gray-haired, but unmistakably her father, holding up a handwritten sign. "I'm proud of you, Lenotchka." Lena showed the photo to Julian. He squeezed her hand. "See?" he said softly. "We won." And for the first time in 3 years, Lena believed it. 1 year later, the gallery opening in Brooklyn was small, intimate by design. White walls, soft lighting, 30 paintings that told a story of survival, hope, and transformation. Natalie Dawson stood near the entrance, greeting guests with the kind of radiant energy that made everyone feel welcome. She'd recovered fully from the ordeal, physically at least. The emotional scars took longer, but therapy and time had worked their magic. "Jules, stop hiding in the corner," she called across the room. "This is supposed to be a celebration." Julian smiled from his position near the back wall. He wasn't hiding, exactly, just observing, watching the crowd admire paintings that his sister had created during her recovery, abstract pieces full of color and chaos and, eventually, light. His empire had been rebuilt, though it looked different now. Smaller, more focused. He'd divested from half his holdings, restructured his company around ethical investments, and created a foundation dedicated to protecting refugees and political dissidents. The money meant less than it used to. Purpose meant more. Charlotte appeared at his elbow, holding 2 glasses of wine. "You look contemplative." "Just thinking." He accepted the glass. "A year ago I was standing in a stairwell overhearing a girl beg for her life. Now look where we are." "Where you are," Charlotte corrected. "I'm just the friend who helped you not die." "Is that what we are now? Friends?" Charlotte smiled, softer than her smiles used to be. "Yeah, I think we are. Turns out being left at the altar was the best thing that ever happened to me. I met someone, a forensic accountant of all things. She's brilliant and funny and doesn't take my crap." "I'm happy for you," Julian said, meaning it. "I'm happy for you, too." Charlotte nodded toward the entrance. "Because here comes your entire future walking through that door." Julian turned. Lena stood in the doorway, and his breath caught the way it always did when he saw her. She wore a blue dress, simple, elegant, and her hair fell loose around her shoulders. But it was her smile that killed him, bright, unguarded, free. Beside her stood a man in his 60s, thin but steady on his feet, leaning on a cane. Anton Kozlov had spent months in recovery, rebuilding his strength. He'd never be the same man he was before imprisonment, but he was alive, present. That was everything. Lena spotted Julian, and her smile widened. She said something to her father, then crossed the gallery to him. "Sorry we're late," she said, rising on her toes to kiss him. Papa insisted on stopping for flowers for Natalie. He didn't have to do that. Try telling him that. Lena took Julian's hand, lacing her fingers through his. "He's been talking about this opening for weeks, how Natalie invited him personally, how kind you've all been." "He's family now," Julian said simply. And he was. Anton had moved into a small apartment 3 blocks from Julian's brownstone. Close enough for Sunday dinners and impromptu visits, far enough for privacy. He was learning English, taking art classes, finding joy in small things: coffee, walks in the park, his daughter's laughter. Lena had changed too. She'd enrolled in university, studying international law with a ferocity that made her professors nervous. She wanted to help others the way she'd been helped, to be the voice for people who'd been silenced. She also worked part-time at Julian's foundation, coordinating refugee services. It wasn't just a job, it was healing. Every person she helped was a small victory against the darkness that had tried to swallow her whole. "Come meet him properly," Lena said, tugging Julian toward her father. Anton Kozlov's handshake was firm despite his frailty. "Mr. Dawson, thank you for the invitation. Please call me Julian, and you don't need to thank me. Natalie's the artist." "I'm thanking you for my daughter," Anton said, his English heavily accented but clear, "for protecting her when I could not, for believing her when the world did not." Julian's throat tightened. "Sir, you gave me back my child." Anton's eyes were wet. "There is no debt I could repay for that. But I will spend the rest of my life trying." "You don't owe me anything," Julian said quietly. "Lena saved herself. I just made sure she had the space to do it." Anton looked between them, at the way Lena leaned into Julian, at the way Julian's hand rested protectively on her back, and smiled. "You love her." It wasn't a question, but Julian answered anyway. "More than I knew was possible." "Good." Anton gripped Julian's shoulder. "Then you have my blessing for whatever future you two build." Lena's face flushed. "Papa, we haven't even—" "Haven't what?" Anton's eyes twinkled. Haven't talked about marriage, haven't looked at rings, haven't imagined a life together? He kissed his daughter's forehead. Lenotchka, I may be old, but I am not blind. This man looks at you the way your mother's father looked at her. Like you are his entire world. Papa, go. Enjoy the evening. I will admire the art. He shuffled toward the paintings, leaving them alone. Lena buried her face in her hands. I'm so sorry. He's been impossible lately. He's wonderful, Julian corrected. He pulled her hands away from her face. And he's not wrong. About what? About how I look at you. About what I want. Julian's heart was pounding. Lena, I know we agreed to take things slow, to not rush anything while you were healing, while life was stabilizing, but, Julian, I love you, he said simply. I love your strength and your courage and the way you refuse to let guilt define you anymore. I love watching you fight for other people the way you fought for yourself. I love that you make me want to be better than I was. He took a breath. And I know it's only been a year, and maybe it's too soon, but I don't want to wait anymore. I want to build a life with you, a real one. Not because you need protection or I need purpose, but because I choose you, every day, for the rest of my life. Lena's eyes were swimming with tears. Are you? I don't have a ring yet, Julian admitted, laughing nervously, because I'm an idiot who planned to wait another month. But standing here, watching you with your father, seeing everything we've survived, I can't wait. So I'm asking now, in the middle of my sister's art gallery, in front of a painting of a thunderstorm. He took her hands. Lena Kozlov, will you marry me? The gallery had gone quiet. Everyone was watching. Lena looked at him. This man who'd risked everything to save her, who'd stood beside her through testimony and trauma, who'd helped her find her father and herself. This man who'd learned to let someone in, to be vulnerable, to love, without trying to control the outcome. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, yes. The gallery erupted in applause. Natalie whooped from across the room. Anton was crying openly, smiling so wide it looked like it hurt. Julian kissed her, and it felt like coming home. When they broke apart, Charlotte appeared with champagne glasses. Well, this is happening. Apparently, Julian said, grinning like an idiot. For the record, Charlotte said, handing them each a glass, I give you my blessing, too, even though you're both ridiculous, and this entire thing sounds like a movie. She raised her glass. To second chances, to choosing courage over fear, to building something beautiful from the ashes. To family, Lena added, looking at her father, at Natalie, at Julian. To love, Julian said, his eyes never leaving Lena's face. They drank, and the evening dissolved into celebration, music, laughter, stories shared among people who'd survived the impossible and found joy on the other side. Later, as the crowd thinned and the night grew soft, Julian and Lena stood on the gallery's rooftop, looking out at the city that had tried to break them. Do you ever think about that night? Lena asked. In the stairwell? Every day, Julian admitted. But not because of the fear, because of what came after, because I almost walked away, almost convinced myself it wasn't my problem. I'm glad you didn't. Me too. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned back into his chest. You know what I realized? I spent 15 years building walls to protect myself from pain, and in one night you knocked them all down, made me feel everything I'd been running from. And it was terrifying. Is it still terrifying? No. He kissed her temple. Now it's just everything. Lena turned in his arms, reaching up to touch his face. I love you, Julian Dawson. I love you, Lena Kozlov, soon to be Lena Dawson if you want. I want, she said. And as they kissed under the Brooklyn stars, neither of them thought about the darkness they'd escaped, only the light they'd found together.